Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of the Looks Like On podcast. In this episode, we welcome back Helpful Hawk Healing. He is a trauma recovery hypno-coach based in Kentucky, USA. In our previous conversation, we talked more about his life journey and how he became a coach in the first place. In this conversation, we just kind of go down the rabbit hole. This is the deepest conversation me and Hawk have ever had. I believe so, and I'm glad it was recorded for a podcast episode. You can find him on Instagram at Helpful Hawk Healing. Yeah. Sick. Awesome. Dang. Hey, before we start, I want to ask, how can I support you on with your projects?
Accountability and just, checking in
What
and
what do you
making
feel you
sure
need like what things do you need to be held accountable for?
just making sure I'm meeting my goals.
Okay. Then I guess
Not
just
when
later when you have some time you can send me your list of your things and then I can
so
do something.
it's just a matter of, one thing about life book is you don't share your life book with people who don't have a life book.
Ah,
That way, that way they don't have the chance to say, "Oh, you can't do that,"
uh-huh.
because they have outlandish goals too.
Mm,
As far as it goes, I'm looking to have the 30th and have the complete program uploaded.
cool.
So that's my main thing, is having the abuse recovery method complete program uploaded. Then I'll start working on revamping it for shadow work integration method.
Sick.
And it'll be basically the same thing, but it'll be specifically going into what did I do? What beliefs did I create? Not just a general alleviation of wounds from abuse. And
Mhm.
then trauma recovery ascension method is, how do I take what happened and turn it into what's working for me? Or how do I find things that are holding back my elevation and ascension and get them to work for me? It's a stepped process, and some people will be drawn to one more than another. But having three options available it makes it so that they can look at what they want.
Sure.
Because shadow work is going into our shadow and finding our limiting beliefs. The abuse recovery method is a general workhorse of, hey, what happened to me, and how can I release the energy that's trapped? Whereas the other two are specifically targeting specific things of, what did I do to my family, would be one of the shadow work things. The recovery ascension is, what's holding me back in raising my vibration
Mm,
because of what, even though I might have removed the wound and changed the belief, my elevation might still be at this point. How do I get it to start rising?
mm,
Yeah. So it, those two I'm looking at by the end of next year having complete, but I want to have the complete abuse recovery method done. And if I don't achieve getting the swim or the tram done, that's okay. But the abuse recovery method, I want it out there.
sweet.
And I'm putting introductory first module on Udemy, but then I'll put the expanded version on a different platform, just to be able to have Udemy sometimes reduces prices,
Huh.
and I don't mind, but doing so much work, having it on on a larger platform, expanded version of it, then presenting it that way is like, here's the introductory method, here's the expanded form, you know,
Mm,
and I haven't nailed that quite in stone yet, but that's, at some point, everything I'm doing, which is in service service is a cycle. You know, there has to be a reciprocal receiving.
Mm.
So my question is, how can I support you?
I think something similar with accountability. And also like I feel like sometimes my direction keeps pivoting and then I kind of have to figure out like where am I now? Like for example, like right now I feel like I really want to help people save time, whether it's through mindfulness, through helping them figure out or how to have a healthy relationship or spirituality. Like, I just want to help people save time so they can spend that time with their loved ones or doing whatever they love to do.
Life book,
Do a life book.
do your life book, bro. That's the best investment I can suggest you make. That's going to give you your goals in 12 specific categories.
Mm,
And then if you become a life book ambassador, which I'm considering doing, I'm not 100% committed to that either, then you've got that in your resume of, hey, here's what I did. And this is how I got focused and how I set up my life. And as a
mm,
life coach, life book would be an incredible asset. But
mm,
one thing about it, even though I might present concepts from life book, I never ever try to promote my coaching or anything towards Lifebook because I'm not, it's a proprietary thing. So I always make sure that, I'm being very careful about how I'm doing it, being mindful that I'm not overstepping the bounds of, hey, I'm just stealing this from somebody else.
mm,
You know, it's but the Lifebook process, going through it, getting clear on exactly what you want, that's going to eliminate your distractions.
What were some of your favorite things about doing the life book?
Finding out exactly who I wanted to be and what I had to get rid of in my life so that I could focus on what would bring me to the point of who I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if it doesn't fit with my life book, there's no point in taking part in it. People are
True.
like, people are like, hey, let's go do this. Hey, let's go do that. Hey, let's go do the other. And I'm like, well, hey, I really loved working on this goal and I achieved it. And now then I've got the next goal. And so I could go do that, but I would rather do something I really love, which is working on my goal. And
Mm,
people are like, oh, no fun. Well, that's not your definition of fun. But my definition of fun and your definition of fun don't have to be the same. Go have fun.
that's true.
You know, I see what you're doing for me would be a waste of time. For you, it's not a waste of time.
Mm,
Go have fun. You know, it's it's a mad. It's that's going back to the five agreements too, and never taking anything personal.
mm,
You know, if I'm not taking what you're saying personally, but you're taking what I'm saying personally, it's like, hey, no, you can take it personally if you want, but that's your definition of fun. My definition of fun is reading the newest Vishnacchiani book or researching stuff, bringing out the best in me so that I can, practicing my guitar. Oh, well, you could practice anytime. Or I can take that 3 hours you want me to go party and practice my guitar.
mm,
I can work on my book. I can work on my projects, whatever it is. I can take my time and do what I want with it because that's what I consider fun.
mm,
You go to a casino, go to a casino. I don't consider wasting money at a casino fun. I don't consider being in a casino fun unless they're paying me to perform.
mm.
My definition and your definition don't have to match.
I feel like your definition and my definition match.
Similar, I'm sure, in some ways. But those of us that are into personal and spiritual development find that things can get lonely
That's true.
because people around us aren't in that same aspect.
Mm,
And, that's why I was asking whether is this just a call or is this, podcast? Well, it can be either or.
mm,
I'm looking forward to, hey, my brother's calling me. We haven't talked in a couple of months, you
yeah.
know. But I mean, if you want to put it up, put it up.
Yeah.
But the main is that we're connecting.
Mm.
How far are we? 12 grand, or 12,000 miles.
Actually, this is actually a cool podcast episode to post because people will hear just what a genuine, spontaneous conversation sounds like.
Yeah, it's
Between two
just,
people who are really trying their best to build their dream lives.
and see that's one thing about the life book too is, have you read any Napoleon Hill?
Yes,
Okay. Have you read The Law of Success?
I have not.
Okay. So he puts up prime prime directive or prime chief aim, definite chief aim. Okay. So that's what you set up as your mission statement for life. Well, what Life Book does is gives you a life vision that you read every day, and it's based on 2 to 3 years, you know, and you keep reading that every day. Now, I've got a life book that's set up for my whole life because the first time I went through it, I was like, okay, what do I want to do with my whole life? And I was looking at my definite chief aim from Napoleon Hill's perspective. And then I went and refined it, and I re-refined it, and the current version that I've got is got things, some of the words changed around or blocked out. It's like, no, it would sound better and work better this way, or you can work on it as you're going, but it's basically every day I read that, and that keeps in my mind where I'm going, what I'm doing, what I'm working for.
Mm,
Places I've been falling down has been practicing and composing my guitar and writing my books because I've been working part time. Well, that's 11 hours a week of driving to and from and working that takes away from my goals.
true.
And I take out time. My main thing for taking out time for entertainment is to watch some comedy. I love dry bar comedy because there's not a bunch of cussing and stuff, but some of the, you know, I like watching, what's his name? Oh, the really heavy set guy. Jeez.
He's still alive?
No, he died a couple of years ago. Uh, anyway, he was very matter of fact about how he spoke. He was on some competition for comic standing, and he didn't win, and yet that was the best thing could have happened to him that he didn't win because he got bigger because of it, and he was just very plain spoken about it. But the things he touched on, he was very plain spoken about it and said, you can throw all the rotten tomatoes you want. I'm just going to eat them. It's like, um, and not Iglesias either, although I love Iglesias.
Yeah.
But Ralphie May, that's who I was thinking.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah, very plain spoken, but he made some very fine points, you know, that were incredible, and he couldn't have made them in any other spotlight. So, I'll watch those kind of people, who inspire me. It's
Mm.
not the latest, oh, this is the latest pot joke,
Ah.
you know, this is the latest this joke or whatever is, it's like, I always hold them up to Robin Williams, and are they inspiring me as much as Robin Williams?
Mm.
And he was a great inspiration my whole life.
Mm.
From and the thing is, I'm old enough. I saw him on Happy Days. I saw Mork and Mindy when they were coming out. So it's like, I'm not watching. I, for me, they're reruns. For other people, they're like, oh wow. For me, they're like, oh, yeah, I was a kid when that came out.
Mm.
I'm sitting here rambling.
What do you think, like, what kind of support do you think Robin Williams needed?
I don't think there could have been a support system that would have worked for him any better than what he had. Because of what ultimately killed him, I look at it from the perspective of he was used, all parts of his brain were firing so much at all times. Like, he admitted to it, I snorted cocaine to come down.
Damn, jeez,
Right. It's like
man.
it can have antisocial effects. So when he would snort cocaine, he would get quiet and reflective. So, all of his brain was firing so much all the time, and he was so on all the time, he just wore it out.
Why was his brain so active like that?
Well, I mean, he could look at anything or pick up anything and immediately, I mean, you've seen him perform, you know, grab a woman's scarf out of the audience, and, it didn't make any difference what it was. He was constantly on.
Mm.
So he would, and pulling from all these things in his brain, it used all of the brain tissues all of the time. Now, why was he on that way? That's the way he decided to incarnate. You
Mm.
know, that's the way he decided. When I incarnate, these are certain things I'm going to use my body for.
I
But
wonder
I
what he was like
believe,
as a kid.
huh?
I wonder what he was like as a kid.
Um, Apparently, from the way I've seen interviews with him and his mother, he was very entertaining.
Yeah.
But he actually got his sense of humor mostly from his mother. From the interviews I've seen with him and her, you know, she was quite on herself.
Mm.
And then he points out that, he's in his Oscar speech and he forget to thank his mom.
Ah, wow.
He's like, and I go into the whole thing and I forgot to thank my mom. It's like, well, but the point of it is that, we don't have to use every bit of our potential, and it's impossible for us to use every bit of our potential. In
Mm.
fact, people say, well, you should try to use every bit of your potential. Well, yeah. Do you want to go from this body to being the whole universe all at one time?
Just
You
explode.
know, and then there are people that have used their potential to the best of their ability, but were completely misguided by it. Adolf Hitler, Mao Zedong, you know, they completely used their potential.
Ah,
But do you really want, I mean, there are some people, do you really want them to reach their full potential?
right.
You know, does the human race, does the earth herself want that person to reach their full potential?
Mm. What do you think about Osho?
And I don't have a much experience of Osho.
Mm.
Um, my main following is with the Ruizes, and um, I'm learning Sri Sri Ananda Murti from Ananda Marga, where I'm, initiated as a yogi. So, from what I've read and seen of Osho, it's a spiritual master in his own right. It's like people ask me what I think of Ram Dass. Really don't know.
Mm.
Don't have the experience to be there. And my goal or my set of a spiritual master is remember something made you. Remember you're part of that making. Treat everybody else as if they were you, and remember that you're part of the making. So, you're me and I'm you, and we're all the great maker or the thoughts of the great maker incarnate,
Mm.
as long as people are teaching that from the loving perspective, then that's who I'm going to listen to. It's like, if you're not teaching from that compassionate perspective, I'm not going to have anything to do with you. You know,
Um,
reading books and put them down. I did not read the Satanic Bible, even though there are a lot of universal truths in it. It's how it's twisted.
mm.
I specifically stopped reading Mein Kampf for the very same reason. It's like, well, there are some very good ideas here, but how it's twisted and how do you turn something that is a benefit to all into a lie? Well, you change even as little as one letter.
Mm.
You know, how was how were the teachings of Joshua or Yeshua or Jesus changed? And now then, how many billions of people have been killed because of it?
Mm. Which spiritual teachers do you follow?
Well, like I said, Joshua, Nandamurti, and the Ruizes,
Who are the Ruizes? Who are those?
Don Miguel and Don Jose Ruiz.
Ah, right, right, yeah. Oh, yeah, because you post statuses from their book.
Yeah, my favorite book ever, The Fifth Agreement.
The Four Agreements I read, I think when I was in high school, and I don't even know why that book was in my house as a kid, but it was. And I read it, and it felt amazing to read it. And then when it was done, I was like, I just remember feeling like that was so amazing. I wish there was more. And I had no idea there was more
Yeah,
content.
Don, his son, came up with the Fifth Agreement.
Mm.
And basically, the Fifth Agreement is always remain skeptical because you don't know what you don't know.
Uh, nice.
Only know it to be known. So how can you know what you don't know?
Uh-huh. Right.
Which goes back to, never make assumptions because you don't know everything that's going on. Well, if you don't know what's going on and you don't know what you don't know, that's important.
I think they should tell that to scientists. I think they forget that.
It depends on the science. Like a lot of neuroscientists, you will find very, if not spiritually, then personally inclined of questioning. So they would, those particular questions and agreements and things like that, they would really take personally.
Mm,
Some other scientists that are stuck in empiricism, not so much.
mm,
But without those particular scientists, we wouldn't know things.
that's true. I had a guest on the podcast recently. He was a neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience. Yeah, so I just wondered, what do you think about near-death experiences?
Well, you're going to have to bleep the statements if you use this. So I had in 22 and I was laying in the bed and I was asleep and I felt myself being pulled into the light and I wouldn't look at it. And I started getting faster and I was like, oh, fuck no, I ain't fucking going out like fucking this. And I hear the angels laughing, napped myself awake and I went to the hospital. And the doctor said, you have had a touch of COVID. I
Ah,
said, yeah. And he said, that's not what the problem is. He said, you got two, three, we don't even know how many biotic infections you have, and put me on these big antibiotic pills, literally that size. He gave me two of them and gave me a double shot. And then I took, for the first 5 days, I took two of them, one in the morning and one in the evening. And the last 5 days, I took one of them. But that was the second time when I was extremely sick and almost went there. The first time I was 13 and had mononucleosis. And that is a very serious immune dysfunction. I was so bad, and it was right after the kid had died with AIDS in St. Louis that they thought I might have AIDS.
Whoa.
But I don't even remember that experience because of morphine, because my body hurt so bad. They would give me very minor injections of morphine, which I hated,
Mm.
which is a good thing
What does
because
morphine feel like?
felt like liquid fire and then nothing. Then it was,
Oh, it makes you just like fall asleep.
it knocked me out.
Dang.
The, the first night I'm in the hospital, this little German nurse comes in there and she says, she wakes me up and to give me a sleeping pill. And I looked at her, I said, I'm not taking that. She said, the doctor ordered it. I said, well, you can tell the doctor to kiss my ass. You don't wake somebody up to give them a sleeping pill.
Yeah.
I get out of my room. You know, I'm 13 years old. I'm in Christian school. I'm the son of a pastor. And I'm just like, no. So the next day when the doctor visits me, he said, put down here, you refuse to take the medication. I said, you don't wake somebody up when they're asleep in sickness to give them a sleeping pill. And I'm not taking your sleeping pills. So take it off the chart.
Mm.
Looked at me and said, well, we'll have to talk to your parents. I said, I don't give a damn what my parents say. I'm not taking your sleeping pill.
Mm.
He's like, well, I'm going to have to put this in your chart. I said, you put whatever you want. I'm
Oh.
not taking your sleeping pill. So my mom shows up and they're having a discussion and she walks in there and he says, you won't take the medicine. I said, did he tell you what medicine I refused to take? The sleeping pill that the woman woke me up to give me a sleeping pill so I would go to sleep? No, I'm not taking sleeping pills. And she said, oh. And I looked at the doctor and I said, you better start being truthful with my mother about exactly what I said.
Mm.
It's like, you're not going to misquote me. But I know that during that time, I got very close one night and I woke up. I was, this was like 9 days. I was comatose. Like, didn't know I was in existence for real. Um, I don't remember how long I spent in there, but I know it was a very long time. I ended up missing a total of like 6.5 or 8.5 weeks of school. And that's not including winter break and stuff, which happened during that time too. So there was like 3, maybe 4 months of life that was literally set to the side for me. And I can't remember whether it was, but I remember waking up one night and the memory of this bright light. And I remember just like, I'm not going there. And I had the feeling of, well, it's not your time yet anyway. But, I mean, I've looked down the barrel of the gun, I've stood on the edge of the bridge, and I've stood on the cliff. I never jumped or pulled the trigger.
Mm.
So something in my higher self or inner being says it's not your time yet. As far as near death experiences go, I've read several of them. And compared to what I went through, I didn't stand at the book and everything like that. I didn't go that far into it. I was like, no, I'm
Mm.
not going down. Perhaps I should have, but I didn't. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. But I watched a couple of the clips you put out, and not only does it resonate with everything I've read, but it also, what he said resonated deep with me was, I came back mainly because of my son, but I realized there's more reason than that. I have a reason to be here. And I've got a reason to be here, even though my ego keeps telling me, well, it ain't being real. It ain't being real. I'm like, yeah, it is.
Mm.
Every time someone sees one of my videos and says, thank you, I needed this today, that's being real.
Mm.
So What about you? Have you ever had a near-death experience, or have you ever contemplated taking away your own situation?
I've never had a near-death experience. I've had a lot of sleep paralysis. I don't know what causes that, but I've had it a lot when I was younger. Now, not so much. Yeah. Um, I don't know. Have you had sleep paralysis before?
I'm not sure what that is.
So what it feels like for me is like I'll be trying to sleep, and then suddenly I feel that I'm completely physically paralyzed, but I can still look around the room. I can still see and hear everything. And sometimes I started hallucinating like scary things, like I don't know, like a creepy shadow or something just scary in the room. And sometimes I can't tell if I'm dreaming or if it's real. But if I can tell that I'm just dreaming, then I can force myself to wake up.
I've had that,
Mm,
and I would say it is a dream. Um, you're into Mind Valley, so check out Charda Morley's thing where about something dreaming. What do we call it? When we're awake in the dream, but we're still in the dream.
like the
Anyway,
lucid.
lucid dreaming. So when you meet those things, you do your best to go to the scariest thing and hug it, kiss it, and tell it you love it because it's
Mm,
a part of shadow coming forward. I
true.
had an incredible lucid dream this last full moon where, like, literally all kinds of dark people or dark skinned people that I knew were dark aspects of me were coming to me. And there was this one, and I was saying, let's all go outside so we can have some room. And I reached over, and the one that bothers me the most, I call Little Dark Man. And I reached over and grabbed him, and I said, no, Little Dark Man, you got to come too. I wouldn't be where I am without you. I love you. And then everybody started chanting, love me, love me, love me. I was chanting along with them, love me, love me, love me, love me, love me.
Mm,
And I had been through my axis, or what people would call an altar, which I don't have one right now, but these it, when I wrote it down, it's like 2 or 3 pages. It was an incredible dream,
mm,
but it was like a lot of my dark aspects came up and worked into integration. And some of those things can be instantaneous. And
mm,
some of them take some time. As far as the paralytic dreams, um, I had a being, I felt the energy laying down into me once in the house where I used to live with my parents when we had first moved in. And I said, no. And I literally forced myself awake and forced it out. Like, no, you're not going to do this. I don't care if I'm asleep or not. You're not going to do this. And that wasn't an aspect of myself. That was an energetic being.
mm,
That, yeah, and that's the thing about dreams is when you're in dreams, things can move in and out.
mm,
And they like to come in and say, hey, I'm part of your dream, so I'm part of you.
mm.
But I knew, I was like, no, no,
Whoa.
you're not a nobody. This does not feel like a part of me. I know you're not me. And we had several arguments in different ways over the years. And I finally said, look, I'm not Catholic, but I will go get a priest and get your ass cast out of here. You better stop. You want to mess with my parents and they want to deal with you, that's fine. But you keep messing with me, you're gone.
Mm,
And it was a ghost that the people that had lived in the house years before um, talked about. One of the daughters, they came back to visit the house and the daughter wouldn't even get out of the car. Like, no, I'm not going in that house.
whoa.
Yeah. And it was there had been a Union fort in West Point, and he was a Union soldier that probably died there from
Mm,
cholera or whatever. But I mean, people always talked about this particular spirit around the town. My parents called him Luke the Spook, and there was a house he had moved into that was empty, and when it got torn down, people stopped talking about seeing him. But there were several times I used to wear a long duster and a Confederate kepi that my dad had given me,
Mm.
and my parents would talk about, you just came in. I said, no, I didn't. Yeah, you did. You were wearing that long coat your sister gave you and that kepi. I'm like, no, I didn't. Yes, you did. I said, no, I did not. I don't know who you saw. I don't know what you saw. It was not me. I'm just now walking in the door. And, it's like, no, you did not see me. So, but there were some experiences that where I was conscious and that thing was there. And especially like the shower, especially liked getting very sensual in the shower.
Mm.
And that's what the girls had reported was like, very uncomfortable things happening in the shower. And the one I said, was it sensual? And she said, oh yeah, very. I said, yeah, he's not very polite, is he? She's like, no,
Damn,
yeah.
that's
But he
crazy.
eventually got banned from the premises.
How?
Um, I used to be very into shamanism.
Mm.
And so I used particular things and said, no, you're not going to be here.
Mm. Cool.
The spirits that used to mess with my dad after he passed away, they came back. They wouldn't come into where I lived, but they came back. And one night, I noticed the hall light on and I heard some talking. And I went up and quietly opened the door. And I heard one of them say, but he doesn't live here anymore. And I looked downstairs and there was nobody there. And I said, he doesn't live here, but I still do. And you were told to leave. Better not come back because you know who walks with me. And the light went off immediately. And, because my best friends are archangels. So it's like, no, you're not going to argue about it. But I literally heard them, I'd heard voices and stuff before, no big deal. I knew there wasn't anybody in the house, but this time I'm hearing them talk and it's like, but he doesn't live here anymore. It's like, no, but I still do.
Whoa.
I've banned you from this place. You're going to leave. You
Man,
know,
I think
some parents,
I think my great no my great great grandma I think practiced some kind of shamanism as well in Peru.
probably. Was she Quechua?
That's a good question. She was from the countryside, so she might have spoken Quechua.
Well, I mean, as far as was she actually born Quechua? Because that is the Andean wisdom, part of what led up into the Toltecs and stuff. And one of my yogic brothers is actually going back to his roots in Peru and learning Andean wisdom.
Cool.
What we would call yoga is consciousness. So, I
Mm,
mean, it's, Mesoamerican consciousness or yogi, like, Yeshua was an Essene, basically a Hebrew yogi,
mm,
where my ancestors were Druidic or Celtic yogis.
cool. So a yogi is like a mystic or
Um, Yoga means union, but it's union with the divine
mm,
and wholeness. So a lot of people equate mystic in a different way. Then it's hard to define. Um, Druids most likely used spells, but what one person calls a spell, another person calls a prayer.
mm,
So how do you describe it in language where it makes it unique? You
mm-hmm,
know, some people would call that prayer. or that spell a mantra.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of, there was a lot of interplay between India and Europe, especially Britain and Ireland, because of the education,
Hmm.
because of similarities in consciousness, and also through the Middle East. Like, people don't realize Hebrews are the people, Jews are the religion.
Hmm.
There are people that would say, "Oh no, that's not true," but if you look it up and study it, yeah, it is, because Jesus wasn't a Jew; he was a Hebrew. He was an Essene, which is considered a Hebrew mystic, and he talked specifically about the Jews in a separate manner.
Hmm.
You know, Pharisees and Sadducees, and the people. If you look it up, the Judaical, or the tribe of Judah. Excuse me. So, what's a mystic? A mystic is someone who studies the mystery of life and the mystery of consciousness and how it interacts, is the way I
Dang.
see it. So when you use the term yogi, well, I am a yogi. I have been initiated as a yogi, but, you know, I just use that as a generalized term, probably improperly, for, describing the meditative state that people use.
Hmm. What is something that you wish the more people in the world knew?
That they're born enough, that they're whole and complete within themselves. Everything they need is within them. All they have to do is just simply retain and remain in that loving state and give that to everybody, but especially giving it to themselves.
That's powerful. Like that they're enough right now, and nothing they ever do will make them more enough because they're already enough.
You're already enough. It, from my understanding, we wouldn't be allowed to incarnate into human bodies if we weren't enough. And the reason we incarnate into human bodies is to learn lessons.
Mm, right. That's what came up in the NDEs, the near-death experiences as well.
Right. And when you study the Toltecs and the Andeans and Essenics and all these different cultures and stuff, that's the main thing. And, is, what lesson did you learn?
Right. And the purpose of learning these lessons would be to unite with Source?
Technically, we're already united with Source because we're God's thought incarnate. We're Source's thoughts incarnate.
Yeah.
The main thing, the way I see it, is we are the great ising its isness as us. It's learning as us. Just as if you sat out and started a thought experiment of what would happen if I followed this, and you take that thought experiment, blah 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 blah. You know, say you're projecting a date with your girlfriend, or projecting a business situation or something. You know, the great source is the great is doing that.
Mm.
Each one of us are its thoughts.
Like what would you say to somebody who's trying so hard to be enough?
Stop trying. You already are. You don't have to try to be something you already are. The only thing you have to do is convince your mind of it. So stop trying to be enough and just keep repeating, I am enough.
Mm.
Because that way your mind will realize the enoughness that was taught out of you as a child.
Mm. Like some might say like, but it's scary to stop trying.
Yeah. And they're stuck in their comfort zone of, I'm not enough. And they're comfortable there. They're comfortable in their wounds because they know the situation.
Like
So
it's
they don't.
familiar, right? It's familiar to them.
Exactly. So as Marissa Peer would say, you have to make the unfamiliar familiar.
Mm.
Like, what is your experience of your own enoughness?
I guess just my whole life I've been enough, but I didn't know it.
Didn't know it, or
Or I
just
got
didn't
it.
observe?
Right, yeah. And I didn't have guidance to to remember that. But luckily now I do, like thanks to like friends like you or some more friends that I have, at least now there's more clarity, thankfully.
Well, that's one thing too with meditation, and you concentrate into yourself to let go of the external world to an extent. It's not to make the mind go blank.
Mm,
It's more to observe what comes up. But when you do it with the feeling of enoughness and do it for the purpose of realizing your enoughness within you, eventually the thoughts you might, you know, have to say, oh, hold on. Shh, shh, shh. I said, shh, thank you. You are enough and I am enough. So we're going to be enough together here in quiet. Let's get back to the mantra, which is what the mantra is for. But from what I understand, most of the mantras are realizing our own enoughness, are bringing it to that feeling to the forefront.
that's one thing that resonated with me in the near-death experience stories, that when these people have a near-death experience and they go to that other realm, whatever that is, they they tend to meet somebody that tells them you are enough.
And a lot of those near death experiences in their life, they're at a crucial moment in their life when something happens and they're not feeling their enoughness.
That's true.
So, so is it a non-conscious or what they would call unconscious, but non-conscious situation of, well, I'm done. Since I can't figure it out, I'm done. And then this situation happens synchronistically, and then they go there and they're like, no, you're not done. You are enough. Now go do it. Go
Mm.
do the damn thing. Get it done. You said you were going to do it before you went there. Now, whether you're realizing it or not, you are enough. Go do it.
Mm. I want to manifest having more conversations like this in my life, like more often. I think it's happening. Like it's been happening more recently, and I hope it continues to happen.
Part of manifestation is projection, and part of manifestation is just acceptance.
Mm.
And like I was pushing hard with these affirmation manifestation things and feeling crappier by the day.
Mm.
And so I let go of a lot of those affirmations because all they were doing was reminding me this isn't happening yet.
Right.
So when I let go and I still have the intention, what I do now is I do reality shifting where I just shift into the feeling of it being there without speaking it.
Mm-mm. Just
You
feeling it.
know, having a thought experiment of what would my life look like if this were the reality and feel the reality of it
Yeah.
and through it. What would it look like for me to be with my wife playing music on stage? And I'm move into that reality. What would it be like to be working with clients regularly instead of working jobs, part-time jobs and stuff?
Hmm.
And what would it be like if my life was the way I envision it and want it to be? How would that feel? As Neville Goddard said, to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. to put on like a cloak or like clothing, so that every one of your senses, they're Shakti Gawain with her visualization exercises says the same thing. All of them say the same thing to make it so real that you don't know whether you're dreaming or not.
Mm.
And it's an incredible way to train your brain. But one thing that's cool is a lot of the things I want for my life, I see happening. Well, I came up with the statement 2016, a millimeter a mile progress every day. Standing still is not regression, it's strategic observation for tactical implementation.
Mm.
Because there's times when you do have to stop and you have to check them out and you have to check the compass. Okay, now we were half a degree off. We got to get back over here.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, a lot of people in the personal development community say, oh no, especially in addiction recovery, is like, oh no, you got to keep going no matter what. You got to keep going no matter what. Well, if you never stop and check to see that you're on the right course,
Mm.
you get a million miles away from where you wanted to be.
That's true.
So stop. That's one thing that Sun Tzu teaches. Lao Tzu's uh, nephew or whoever it was that wrote The Art of War is progress is important. You've got to keep progressing. You never give the enemy a break, but there's times when you've got to stop and make sure, as where I am, the most strategic place to be.
Mm.
Ah, and now then I review my strategy and I say, oh, there's where the hole is, and that's where I need to plug it. And this is what I need to do to, you have to take time and look at that. Now, spending too much time there, you know, correct the course. Now keep going. And that's
Mm.
where life is so handy is you've always got your North Star. So taking time to recalibrate is so much simpler because is this working with is what I'm doing, is this habit working with my plan? No, it's not. Okay, remove it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So life
So
will
it's
like
that
gives so much clarity and keeps your direction clear for you so you don't stray off course. Wow.
right, in 12 different categories of life. That's one thing that John did when he did it was he was doing all kinds of personal and spiritual development stuff. He basically had a nervous breakdown and his you know Michael Beckwith and all these different people have different things and they all correlate, but John Butcher's is the most comprehensive I've found. And there are 12 categories that you break life into. And you ask, what do I believe? What do I want? Why do I want it? And what do I have to do to get it?
Mm.
And, you're asking 48 questions, but those 48 questions are very deep and you find a common thread moving through all 12 categories and find out all these different facets of your personality. And it basically says, who do I have to be in order for this to be real?
True, right? Yeah, who do I have to be? Right. Oof. Okay, that confirms to me that I'm doing the right thing then because I feel that I dropped an unhealthy habit recently. Um, I guess like the way I can explain this so that it makes the most sense is I had an unhealthy habit for a long time and I just recently lost faith in that habit. Like I realized that I had so much faith that this habit was helpful for me because I guess it helped me to keep my sanity when I was younger. But in the long run, it was actually something really unhealthy. So I've lost faith in that habit, and now I feel that I'm really becoming the person that I'm supposed to be. Like it's just, I guess, part of my journey, right? Like it's part of my metamorphosis or something.
Yeah. And getting to those places is important. And one thing too, and the keep going thing, we'll reach those plateaus where we let go of a habit that was not working for us. Originally, it did something for us. That's what addiction is. Originally it covered something up, but then it quit covering it up, quit making it feel better. And so then we had to do something about it. For me, back in March, I quit smoking pot. When, in the last, from 2020 to last March, I had smoked maybe a total of 4 ounces. Whereas, there was a point in my life where it was an ounce a week. But then in a 3-year period of time, it was maybe 4 ounces, and that's including what other people smoked with me, maybe 6. But it quit doing it. It quit being the key way to open the door for what I wanted to open the door to, and started holding me back. It was holding me down as opposed to getting me high. It held me down. It pulled me down from where I was, pulled me down from where I wanted to be. And so this isn't working anymore. I drank a beer last Wednesday, not yesterday, but last Wednesday as a pre-celebration of my birthday. And it was one of 4 beers I had this year. And it's the first alcohol I actually got a buzz off of in years.
Whoa.
But I was drinking it on an empty stomach, and it was a pretty hefty content of alcohol in there. But I drank whiskey trying to mourn my father and knowing that whiskey was a depressant, and I never got a buzz off of it. I just got sleepy. This, I actually, like, ooh, I'm intoxicated. It's like, this is a buzz. I remember this feeling. Okay, we're not gonna do this again very soon, because I know that that's something that I could easily jump back into, and I don't want to. But it did taste good. It did feel good. In the moment, it was relaxing and opening up, and it was a good thing to do. It wasn't a bad thing to do. Occasionally, as far as smoking pot, I don't know if I'll ever smoke pot again, because it brought me down. I'd meditate and do all these things, get everything done for the day, and it's like, okay, now I can sit back and play my guitar. Okay, smoke a little bit, and it didn't work. Used to, I'd smoke and I couldn't put the guitar down. Now it's like, I don't even want to do this, man. So it was, it's like, no, this is not helping anything. See ya.
Right, it's not relevant to your life book anymore.
Yeah, it was holding me back from my life book. So it's, and not only that, but life is cheaper. Or more affordable ways. There's more money in the bank.
And good thing you were aware of that. Good thing you were aware that it just wasn't helpful anymore.
Well, I'd realized that a couple of years before, even before my father died in 21. But I'd reduced the amount so much that I knew I wasn't using it to hide from things. And I was able at that point to use it as the key way. But then I realized, and actually I realized it for a few months beforehand, that it's like, this is blocking things. This is you're sticking the key in the door, but it's just spinning. You're not getting the door open, and this is holding you back. If you want to open that door, you're going to have to let it go. And finally, I said, okay, here you go. And I gave a fairly good quantity away to some good friends of mine. It's like, here you go. And it was multiple brands. It was I had to get me up. I had to put me to sleep. I had I had different ones for different things, and it just I was like, oh, well, I don't need it
Mm.
and I don't want it. So, being aware of what you're doing and whether it's a positive thing and letting it go, that's an incredibly good place to be. And I commend you for it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Pat on the back, bro.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like it was blocking a lot of my like I started to question if I even have free will for a long time. And that feeling would come and go. Like I would feel like, oh, I have free will now because I stopped, and then I would start again. Like, damn, do I even have free will? I would really question that a lot before.
Um, Looking at it from the higher self perspective, there's a certain amount of free will, but mainly our free will is how we decide to feel in the moment about what's going on,
Mm.
you know, and deciding to remain detached from what's going on. People really look at you weird, but deciding to remain detached from what's going on is that to me is the ultimate in free will,
Right, yeah.
whether I am emotionally attached to something or not.
I think that was one of the insights from Viktor Frankl's book, uh, Man's Search for Meaning, because he was a psychologist in Auschwitz, and right, didn't he say like no one can take away your freedom to decide like how to interpret a situation? Is that what it was?
Something similar to that.
Mm.
And that book, wow, that book was a life changer
How
because
did it
that
change
guy
your
went
life?
5 different camps. He could have left, and he stayed because of his parents. So I have that similar thing where I was praying, God help me help my parents, and God took away my job. Now I didn't have to move back in with my parents, but finally one day I was like, where can I find a job? I need to find a job. You know, if I don't find a job, I can't help my parents. And then it was like almost a voice spoke to me, said, if you moved in with them, you give them the help they actually need.
Mm.
So I moved in with them, and the physical help they needed as aging adults, I was there to provide.
Cool.
So, that realization of my life and Victor choosing not to leave when he could have, but and he was even encouraged to leave. He's like, no, I'm not leaving my parents behind. They need help. And then of course he was separated from them and things like that, but he couldn't control that.
Mm.
But he stayed to honor his parents. And so I could identify with that real easily. And if he hadn't gone through everything he had gone through, he would never have been able to come up with what he had never would never have been able to come up with what he came up with in the end. Like he'd already been working on this situation and he started rebuilding it in his mind. But because of what he was going through and because of what he went through, he was able to alter it. So if he hadn't been through those concentration camps, if he hadn't been through those experiences, would he have been able to form whatever it was he ended up forming if it hadn't been for those experiences? And the
Cool.
amount of compassion he actually had for others, and especially the guards that he expressed in that book, the amount of compassion he had was incredible. It's like these people didn't want to come here and do this stuff, and that's why they treated us even worse, is because they hated us for being the reason they had to do these things.
Mm.
You know, and that's one thing I've read about a lot of survivors. I can't remember her name, and she was rescued in Auschwitz, and said, "Don't you hate Hitler?" And said, "No, I'm not giving him that much power. I feel sorry for him, if anything at all. How
Mm.
can anyone be cruel? But I'm certainly not going to carry that around with me."
Sure. Some deep stuff.
It's not really that deep once you get the media out of the way. It's not that deep.
Mm.
You know, Yeshua says, "Love those that hate you, love those that torment you." You know, there's a good book called "In the Presence of Mine Enemies" about a guy that was captured and was a POW in Vietnam for 5 years, and I don't know if you ever heard of it, but he's a Christian, but he explains everything that he went through, and I mean, some of the stuff that he saw happen makes the Japanese concentration camps feel small and feel like, wow, the human mind can come up with some horrible ways to torture. And the only way he was able to get out of it was just to keep his faith.
Mm.
But he did express compassion for the people that were there. Like, he knew that most of them didn't want to be there. Who would want to go to prison every day or live in the prison and have to just be cruel to people?
Right.
Some people, yes, that's what they thrive on, but most of them, that's not what they thrived on.
Mm.
So, in order to release that, they were even crueler than they had to be.
Mm. Yeah.
It's like, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have to be here doing these things. I could be at home with my girlfriend or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, they make the person the scapegoat. And
Mm. Huh.
And we do that too.
True.
No matter how, no matter how enlightened, I was thinking during my meditation, the thought came up, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah.
you know, like just live, but it's living from a different perspective.
True. A different lens or something.
There's a whole different way in which we're viewing life, and a whole different way we're not reacting, we're responding. We're not coming from the subconscious programs. We're aware that the subconscious program is there, and we see it trying to react, and we say, "Oh, no, no, you're not going to do that this time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it this way."
Sick.
So, I've got a little test I give people, and to show that point of the difference between reaction and response.
Mm.
The two people that passed it, there's only three people that have ever passed it, but the two people that passed it first were ex-convicts.
Whoa. What is
You
this?
want to go through?
Yeah, what is it?
Okay, so you're walking down the street,
Mm-hmm.
and you look over and you see an old man and a young girl,
Mm-hmm.
about 12 or 14. All of a sudden, the old man just turns around and just starts bam, blam, blam, punching her in the stomach. What do you do?
The old man is punching the girl in the stomach.
Yeah,
What do I do?
no thinking about it. You gotta go.
Yeah,
What
my
what are you
instinct
gonna do?
just says to kick the old man away from her.
Okay, so you keep pushing him away, pushing him away. Somebody calls the police.
Mm.
They eventually show up. Eventually, an ambulance shows up. They separate everybody. As you watching, while the police are, yet another police officer is talking to you, you notice they're covering her face, which is blue, when they put her in the ambulance. Finally, the Albanian translator gets there, and they talk to the old man, and they find out that she had a life-threatening condition, that the only way to apply the Heimlich maneuver was to punch under her solar plexus in a very particular way.
Ah.
So while you thought you were saving her life,
Mm.
or saving from an ass beating, he was saving her life.
Nice.
So, should I act from response, or should I react, or should I respond? The two guys that passed it the first time said, "I want to know what's happening."
Ah, nice.
And
True.
they go over and they tried to talk to the old man.
Mm.
And, he started making gestures and stuff. And then they realized he was trying to help her.
Mm-mm.
So that's the difference between assumption,
True.
which leads to reaction, or observation.
That's cool that the convicts can visualize seeing an old guy punching a girl in the stomach and then actually thinking like, I want to find out why that's happening first. That's cool.
Well, okay, so look at their perspective of the situation. They were in prison. They see
Mm,
their friend get his ass beat. Maybe he's going to get shivved, but is it their situation to get involved with at all?
right.
Their life could be on the line.
Hmm.
And the one ex-con was actually put in for murder.
Mm,
You know, well, he saw a guy slice his dad up, and he walked into a situation, saw his dad bleeding on the floor, thought his dad was dead, goes over, slices the guy's throat with a knife, and then goes to check his dad out, finds out his dad isn't dead.
mm,
The whole situation was a case of mistaken situation, but the guy that ultimately died, his father died too, but the guy that ultimately died that he had killed was not good man at all. There was nothing good in the man.
mm,
So, but yeah, it shocked me because I have had very good hearted people, and they want to break them up, and they're saying, well, that's cruel, that's you shouldn't be talking about that stuff. Well, you just showed me that you don't have the capacity within you to reserve judgment of the situation.
mm,
Yes, it's cruel, but it's truth is fact, requires no belief, and owns no emotional content.
mm.
Truth is just what is.
Yeah.
And they'll sit there and say, well, God is truth. I'll say, no, God is love. The truth is God is love.
Mm.
But the truth itself requires no belief and owns no emotional content. It's just the fact. The fact is God is love. Truth isn't love. Truth is just what is. Rock is hard.
Truth is just what is actually happening.
Or it's just the facts, Jack.
Like, yeah, like
It's
no
just
stories, no concepts, just the facts, just straight up facts,
right.
no assumptions.
It's just, the sun is hot.
Yeah.
Duh. That's
Yeah. It's like gravity.
well, now gravity is a shared observational experience, in
Mm.
my opinion. I've got a friend who used to fall a lot, and they changed his medication so he doesn't fall as much. But he, used to say repeal the law of gravity. But I just believe my personal belief of gravity is that it's an electromagnetic process that because of the spinning of things that causes gravity, the electromagnetic mass is attracting the smaller masses.
Oh.
Talk to physicists and they're like, well, that's not exactly true. I'm like, okay. You show me something that doesn't have a magnetic system within it, since we know that all energy has magnetic system in it.
Mm.
You got a magnet this big and something this big.
Mm. It's good.
That's my opinion. Because if you take, like my father said, you take a basketball and you put a BB on it and you spin that basketball, it's going to throw that BB.
Mm.
And then the argument is, well, you have to fill the basketball with mass and for it to stay there. And I'm like, no, there has to be an attractive principle for it to be there.
Mm.
That's where law of attraction works.
Right. Turn on the magnet.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, Hawk, I'm gonna say goodbye for now. I do have to get some rest for my day job tomorrow. But this was awesome. Let's do this again.
It's nice to contact with you. How about we do this again early in December?
Yeah. And then this gives me an idea that I should be having more episodes like this, where it's like just spontaneous conversation that we did that just like we didn't really plan any of this. It just kind of came out.
And if you want to use it as an episode, go ahead. In my personal things, I'm going to start steering more towards narcissistic abuse as opposed to just general personal development.
Mm,
You know, go back and take my old episodes and okay, how does this actually look in narcissistic abuse and, bringing that to the forefront to get back to trauma recovery. Because personal development is great, but I specifically want to help people alleviate their wounds and traumas. So that's what I'm looking at. But how can I do that? As far as unscripted talk, cool.
cool.
Or I might actually next time have some questions for you. I mean,
Sure, sure. And you can tell us also more about your work with the like trauma recovery. I'm sure more people want to know about that.
I did get me a fluffy mic.
Good. Good.
Yeah, my little Timu mics. I dropped the phone one day and broke the receiver.
Mm.
I said, I'm not going to reorder that. I'm going to actually invest in a decent set of mics. So I looked cross brand and I liked the noise reduction of this. And I wanted something fluffy. So when I'm out in the wind, it's not going to be fluffy.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
So
Awesome.
I got my own trouble.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
That
Hug.
was
See you next time. Bye. Take care.